Because every time you birth a black child into this world that you are not taken serious, you just gave birth to another slave for the plantation. That's all you did. Clarence Thomas is a slave. Charles Barkley is a slave. Candace Owens is a slave. Jesse Lee Peterson is a slave. You either giving birth to slaves or you giving birth to revolutionaries. That's it. As you know, I'm always on the Pan-African War Trail. And because I'm always on the Pan-African War Trail, sometimes I don't get enough time to check in with black parents who may not necessarily be conscious, who may not necessarily be Pan-Africanist, who may not necessarily be politically inclined. So today, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I'm going to give black parents 9 tips to deal with the current school year. This is not the Black Parent Boot Camp. We will be doing a Black Parent Boot Camp at least once a month. This is not the Black Parent Boot Camp. We will be doing a Black Parent Boot Camp at least once every month. Because of my responsibilities, including FDMG Academy, I can't do Black Parent Boot Camp every week, but I do promise that I will do my best to bring you a Black Parent Boot Camp at least once a month. So today's topic here in Capitol Heights, Maryland, 9 things every black parent should know. 9 things every black parent should know. 9 things every black parent should know. Number 1, as soon as the school year begins. Number 1, as soon as the school year begins, you should try to get the contact information for as many black parents in your child's classroom and school as possible. This is a big mistake black parents make. This is a big mistake black parents make. Y'all don't start looking for other parents to communicate with until your child gets in trouble. You black parents don't start looking to connect with other black parents until your child gets in trouble. That's too late. That's too late. Dr. Umar Johnson is telling you the first day of school, soon when you see another black parent whose child is in your child's classroom, ask them for their phone number. Get all of them. If your child is at a predominantly white school, you can get every black parent's number. Let me say this again. If your child is at a predominantly black student school, you need all the black parent contacts for your child's classmates. All the black parent contacts for your child's classmates. If your child attends a predominantly white school, you want the contacts for every black parent you can find. Do you understand? Do you understand? Do you overstand? Do you understand? You need allies in this war to save your child. And too many black parents are going through the same thing. Too many black parents are going through the same thing for y'all to be fighting by yourself. The first month of school is all about collecting the contact information for other black parents. Walk up to them. How you doing? My son and your son is in the same class. Would you mind if I take your phone number in case we need to have a conversation down the road? Your daughter and my daughter attend the same school. If you don't mind, I would like to get your phone number in case we need to have a conversation down the road. Start getting the contact information for other black parents. Stop waiting until your child is in a crisis and now you don't have the contact information for other children. When a lot of your children get into these behavioral situations where other children are involved and you need to talk to the other parent, but you don't have the other parent contact, that's your fault. That's your fault. That's your fault. When you need to talk to other black parents, but you don't have other black parents' contact information, that's your fault. You should have had their contact information the first month of school. This way you could have talked to them. Never let the school know you're keeping in contact with other black parents. Never let the school know you're keeping in contact with other black parents. Never let the school know you're keeping in contact with other black parents. Black mothers, you have to discipline your mouth box. Black mothers, you have to discipline your mouth box. You talk too much. You tell the school too much. The school don't need to know which parents you are friendly with. They don't need to know that. They are not your friend. No school is your friend. Not the charter school, not the public school, not the private school, not the parochial school, not the independent school. You don't have friends inside of your child's school. Let me say that again. You don't have friends inside of your child's school. I want to make that very, very clear. You don't have friends inside your child's school. So the principal doesn't need to know that you are friends with another child's parent, because you never know when you and that other child's parent are going to have to work together to protect your child or their child. You never know when the other child's parent and you will have to work together to protect your child or their child. Never let the school know what cards you have in your hand. Never let the school know what cards you have in your hand. So that's number one. Get other parents' contact. Get other parents' contact. Get other parents' contact. That's number one. I just got invited to speak in Tennessee. October the 28th. We're going to see about that. My Tennessee Africans, I might be coming back sooner than we thought. October the 28th, I will be in Omaha, Nebraska, December the 2nd. I will be in Omaha, Nebraska for the second time ever on December the 2nd. I might be in Brazil in November. And I will be back in Nat Turner land on November the 11th. Brothers and sisters. Number two, keep track of all your child's suspensions and detentions. Keep track of all your child's suspensions and detentions. Keep track of all your child's suspensions and detentions. Don't leave it up to the school to keep track of suspensions and detentions, because schools often bury suspension notices, especially for special ed children. Schools do not keep honest track of your child's suspensions. They don't. Especially if your child has an IEP. Especially if your child has an IEP. Especially if your child has an IEP. You know why? Because in the United States of America, you can only suspend a special ed child for 10 days. Total. In the United States of America, you can only suspend a special ed child for 10 days. In the United States of America, you can only suspend a special ed child for 10 days before the IEP team has to conduct a manifestation determination and approve subsequent days of removal. So since the special ed kids only get 10 days, the school only has 10 days that they can use to suspend a special ed child. You know they're going to go over because your child doesn't know how to act. You know they're going to go over the 10 days. So you need to be keeping track of the suspensions. Every time you get a suspension notice, put it in a notebook. You should have a notebook for every child. The era of the disorganized black parent died yesterday. The era of the disorganized black parent died yesterday. The era of the disorganized black parent died today. Today is the birth of the organized black parent. This day forward, we are now organized black parents. We are no longer sloppy. We are no longer disorganized. We are no longer uninformed. This is the beginning. This is the birth of the organized black parent. So get on your job. If you're not going to raise them, stop having them. If you're not going to raise them, stop having them. If you're not going to protect them, stop having them. If you're not going to take their education seriously, start having them. Stop having them. Because every time you birth a black child into this world that you are not taken serious, you just gave birth to another slave for the plantation. That's all you did. You either birthing a revolutionary or you birthing a slave. That's it. That's it. There's no in between. You either giving birth to a revolutionary or you giving birth to a slave. That's it. Every black parent, every black person in this world, male or female, rich or poor, educated or uneducated, is either a slave or a revolutionary. Clarence Thomas is a slave. Charles Barkley is a slave. Candace Owens is a slave. Jesse Lee Peterson is a slave. You either giving birth to slaves or you giving birth to revolutionaries. That's it. Keep track of the suspensions. Keep track of the suspensions. Keep track of the suspensions. Okay? Also, if your child is suspended and you don't get a notice, they didn't do you a favor. Demand a notice. If your child is suspended and you didn't get a notice, demand a notice. Sometimes they don't give you the notice because they want you to forget about the suspension day. This is a trick that principals use. They will suspend your child and not put it on the record. They will suspend your child and not put it on the record. Sometimes they don't give you the suspension notice because the suspension notice was written up to make your child look like a demon. They don't want you to see it. Sometimes they don't give you the suspension notice because the suspension notice was written up to make your child look like a demon. They don't want you to see it. Demand the suspension notice. I did not get the suspension notice. And if you don't get a suspension notice, take your child back to school. Legally, I'm giving you the law. In the United States of America, you cannot suspend a child without a notification. They have to go home with paperwork. You have to email the parent paperwork. If your child is suspended and you didn't get a notice, if your child is suspended from school and you didn't get a notice, they are not suspended. Take your child back to school. Take your child back to school. And if they say he can't come in here, he's suspended, give me a notice. And if you're not going to give me a notice, I'm going down to the superintendent's office right now. I'm taking my child to the superintendent's office right now. I'm taking my child to the superintendent of the school district's office right now. And you go downtown and you tell them the principal is breaking the law. He gave my child verbal notice of a suspension with no documentation. With no documentation. You cannot suspend a child without documentation. Part of the suspension process requires documentation. My child didn't get any documentation. I wasn't given any documentation. Take the child back to school. Take the child to the superintendent's office. Never let your child stay home without a notice. You need documentation. Email, postal mail, book bag mail. You need notice. Hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. Hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. Hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. I am in Capitol Heights, Maryland. I am in Capitol Heights, Maryland. I got sleepy driving back to Philly last night from Nat Turner's 223rd birthday celebration, Earth Day celebration, solar return celebration. I got tired and I pulled off in Capitol Heights, Maryland. So I'm here in Capitol Heights, Maryland. Shout out to all my Maryland Africans. I might doozy on up to Baltimore. I might stop by my favorite black bookstore. I might stop by the Great Blacks and Wax Museum. I might pull up in Washington, D.C. at the Sankofa bookstore. I might pull up at Howard University, get me a Howard hoodie. I might pull up at Coppin State, get me a Coppin State t-shirt. I might pull up at Bowie State, get me a Bowie State headband. I might pull up at Morgan State. I might pull up at Delaware State. I might pull up at University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I might pull up at Lincoln University. I might pull up at Cheney University. King Kong consciousness. Now, I don't know what your definition of coon is. I don't know what your definition of sellout is. But if there is any definition of a sellout, the gangster rapper has to be at the top of the list with Jesse Lee Peterson.